Hello, it's Evan Brand, certified functional medicine practitioner. Let's dive into some of the top causes of recurring gut issues. I've seen thousands of clients that have seen, 10, 20 practitioners before they get to me, and the story is always the same. I've done oregano, I've done garlic, I've done mastic gum, I've done antibiotics, I've done IV this, IV that, and I'm no better off than where I started, or if I was better, I slid backwards. We retest them, and guess what? They still have candida, they still have parasites, they still have bacterial overgrowth, and it makes you question, well, what the heck went wrong? Well, let's dive into some of the things I think are going on. So number one, chemical toxins. I mean, we know, for example, that glyphosate, which is Roundup, is the brand name. The patent expired, so now glyphosate is the chemical that's used in a huge wide range of various products on the market and foods. If your food is not marked organic, it should be marked chemical. You see the conventional section at the grocery, then you see the organic. You gotta go organic, as close to 100% as you can, because we know that even parts per billion, that is, do you know how small that is? Parts per billion? That is insane. Parts per billion of glyphosate has been shown to act as sort of a natural antibiotic, meaning that it's going to kill off good, beneficial bacteria in your gut, which is then going to allow things like C. diff. You've probably heard of C. diff before, right? Clostridia difficile. It's bad news, and the Center for Disease Control is freaking out because the antibiotics that used to treat C. diff no longer work. So now you have this, what they call the end of the antibiotic era. You have all these resistant infections that just tend to come back, and I would argue that glyphosate, and I know that Stephanie Seneff, who's done a great job of educating the public about the dangers of glyphosate, I've interviewed her on my podcast several times. She would argue the same thing, that it's leading to all of these resistant infections and really destroying our gut microbiome. Number two, fungal overgrowth. So that can be a side effect of the glyphosate exposure. However, it can happen on its own due to mold exposure. And you can develop what's called colonization. So what will happen is, if your immune system is weak, if you've lived in a water damaged building, or even you stayed in a vacation home for a week or a month, if your immune system was weak enough, you got exposed to enough mold, or you got exposed to mold long enough, eventually what will happen is colonization. Think of the word colony. That's what's happening. You're literally growing mold in your system, and we can measure that very accurately using urine organic acids testing. We'll look at various markers like tricarbolic acid, which will identify Fusarium, a particular mold that grows that makes mycotoxins. Mycotoxins then weaken the immune system, and that leads to the recurring gut infection. So if you're somebody who's done all the antimicrobials, you've rotated through all the various herbs, you've done maybe even conventional prescription antibiotics along with the herbals, and you're still not better, or you're having a regression or a recurrent infection, you really need to consider some sort of immune issue, whether it's viral, whether it's parasites, whether it's Lyme or co-infections, or simply just mycotoxins, keeping that immune system suppressed. In particular, we test for something called mycophenolic acid, which is a very potent immune suppressant. In conventional medicine, they use it to shut down the immune system so your body doesn't reject an organ. That's a crazy potent immune suppressant. And then lastly, I mean, we can't just ignore this. What about bad protocols? What if somebody just didn't do a protocol correctly? What if they did weak formulas? Maybe they went to Whole Foods and just bought some off the counter, over the counter oregano. Maybe it wasn't strong enough. Maybe the purity, the potency wasn't good enough. In the past, I've had clients look at my protocols. They go on Amazon to save $2, and then they buy something cheaper that's not a professional formula. They don't get the results they want. Then they come back to me. I say, hey, how did the protocol go? Oh, well, I went to Amazon and bought this because I saved $2 and I'm no better off. So then they have to spend more time, more money on getting the professional formula they should have got in the first place. So you really don't want to cut corners when it comes to formulations. You want to have professional formulations created by professional supplement manufacturers that are going to use good manufacturing processes, and they can assure you that what is on the label is what you're actually getting. Next, we already talked about this a little bit, but resistance. What if the infections you have are resistant to the type of herbs or drugs that you're using? You may need to rotate through, and that's where a practitioner would come in handy to look at some of the formulas you've done and try not to repeat the same thing over and expect different results. And then lastly, there's no 6R approach. So In functional medicine, you may have heard about that before, a 6R approach. Basically, it's an order of operations we run people through to ensure good results. What does that look like? Well, number one, we have to get the proper testing. So my 6R may differ from others, but you got to get the proper testing so you know what you're up against. You're then going to come in and you're going to start to replace enzymes if you need them. You're going to start to remove the infections if they're there. You're going to retest. Make sure the infections are gone. You may come in and use antimicrobial herbs followed by probiotics, but you can't do that if you haven't cleared out the bugs. So I always say phase 1, get rid of the bad guys. Phase 2, heal the gut. However, there's sometimes a phase 1.5 in between, meaning we may have to retest and run new herbs before we can get the all clear message. Now we're going to go and reseed the gut. We're going to fertilize it with maybe prebiotics, probiotics, spore-based items. We may do that later. But if you just go straight over to the probiotic, prebiotic, spore-based stuff and you didn't get rid of the infections, you didn't get rid of the mold exposure, you're still living in the moldy house, you still have the mycotoxins in your system, then I can't guarantee your success. So make sure you work with a practitioner that walks you through these steps so that you can get yourself better. And most importantly, you can stay better. Now, one last thing I guess we could put here, we'll blame it on the spouse. We'll just say spouse, but obviously that could be boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever, I don't care. Anyone that you're intimate with, a lot of these infections can be passed, and it doesn't even have to be intimate, to be honest. This could be your children, just sharing cups, sharing spoons. It's very easy to pass certain infections between each other. I've seen it hundreds of times with H. pylori, where mom says, hey honey, try a bite of this, and gives the kid a bite of applesauce, and she used the same spoon, and then guess what? Now the kid has H. pylori, and then the kid drinks from mom's water bottle, mom drinks that water bottle, and then boom, they both have an H. pylori infection, and they're passing it between each other. Same thing with intimate partners as well. It can happen very easily. I've seen it hundreds of times. So always make sure that if you are with someone or you have someone in the family, do they have symptoms? Maybe they're just an asymptomatic carrier, but it's possible that they're the problem and you have to address them too. So that would involve possibly testing them, or depending on the practitioner, they may just come in and give you some formulas to help treat that family member as well. That way you don't get reinfected and waste your time or money. This is Evan Brand signing out. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next video. If you need help clinically, the links are down below and right up here. Take care. Bye-bye.